hit start and it will go in
Awesome.
3, 2, 1. You're good.
So welcome to our budget workshop number 3. After reviewing our budget today with Rich and Greg, I have made some edits and I realize I can't always spell, so we'll make some changes tonight.
It's a bright red too when I like
Yes,
that.
yes. So again, I thank you for taking this journey. In our budget workshop 1 and 2, we presented with complete transparency our entire operational budget. Now in workshop 3, we have developed an accurate financial picture so we can offer our children the best opportunity for education. So again, our goal for our budget workshop is to provide business direction through transparency and detail, but please note the number projections are fluid, which means they do change. So our topics for this evening are we're going to update the budget with the tax levy and tax cap. We will present the 3-part budget of administrative, program, and capital. We will present the school food service, revenue update, our reserve plans, propositions, recommendation, and we will do a fund balance projection update. So here are our updated tax levy and tax cap, and we will see through history of Fort Edward from 2019, our tax levy going through time, and our tax cap as well. What I'm projecting is a 2.2% tax cap, which our levy will be $3,537,731.
2.2% increase, tax cap is 2.
The 2.2 is, yes, that
Yeah,
will be the tax cap, yep. And here's our 3-part budget, looking at administrative, capital, and program. I will point you to this number right here, because as I said, this is significantly lower than what we had in workshop 1 and 2. And as we will go along, we will show you why that number has dropped significantly. But we had all the expenses in our operational costs previously in those workshops, and now we will be able to show you where revenues and how that plays out in the picture. But at 77%, that is our program, 13% is our capital, and 10% is our administrative. And this is a true comparison of an apple to an apple, where before we were trying to compare to different kinds of fruit. This is what our projected budget will be. This is last year's budget. The overage is $388,238.42 for a 3.296% difference. One of the major reasons that number had dropped from 13 million are these highlighted areas. We will prove that with food service, it's a budget, if you think of it as a budget within a budget. So it's kind of its own standalone. Food service here is run by BOCES. We do not have to budget in a different account so that we get that aid by doing it through our BOCES here, cap BOCES. They actually run it like its own little business. So that's what it does. So you can see all its costs and all of its appropriations expenses and its revenue, and the budgets match. But these highlighted portions, which will be staffing, our managers of the food service and also the school lunch personnel that are Fort Edward employees, are actually can be taken out of what we previously put into our budget. So with a $148,500 and a $38,510.40, those are numbers that can be taken out of the complete operational cost of our budget. And this is our revenue update. As we talked about in workshop 2, we had kind of our initial state runs of finances and monies. Some of the major ones I said before was looking at the high cost excess and also the private excess costs. Those were lower than it was expected because the state projected wrong using a calculation that was not correct. We said just be prepared for that because those numbers should be higher, and they are significantly higher. We are now having $470,000 based on those 2 special ed One is the private, one is the excess cost. So our total with all of our revenues is $12,167,586.42, which is balancing our expenses. And this hopefully will clear things up as we now do. This is our F fund. These are all the federal monies. It's again a standalone part of our budget. So this total down here of $679,000 can be again taken out of our complete operational budget. So over here, if you look, our first draft budget in workshop 1 and 2 with all our operational costs is $33,596.82. Subtracting our cafeteria budget with the management and the non-instructional salaries, and also F budget. That's why we are able to get the $12,167,586.42.
So just to piggyback on Chris, you know, I want to commend him for his true transparency. If you look at that $13 million where Tom had alluded to last budget cycle, that, you know, we're cresting, that's somewhere we've not been in a long time. And now, but when I went over it with Chris, he was saying that is the total operating budget for the Fort Edward Union Free School. So he gave us line by line everything that it costs to operate the school. Now he's taken that and pulled out those budgets within a budget, considering our federal funding and through our cafeteria funding, and those are some things that we do not have to account for as an expenditure. So those revenues now take it down to 12,167. And when we first did this, I want to say, Mr. Rader said, you know, we're at a 5% increase, and now we're down to a 3.4% increase. So again, I just want to thank you for that full transparency of what the operating costs of our school is, and then fleshing out the budgets within the budget. So thank you.
Yes. Now we're going to review reserves, which was a very educational process, but in the process I actually was very excited because there's some things we can talk about. Keep in mind, reserves are an additional too. So if you're talking about we have workers' comp, yes, we already put that in the budget. This is for overage. This is so that we have a safety net. So if there's any costs that are hitting us because someone, God forbid, gets hurt on the job and it's more than what our coverage costs, because we do work with a cooperative. So our cooperative cost, that's what we put into the budget. So if there's ever an extra need financially to cover that expense, we have that as a reserve. So that's why this might seem, wow, that could be, you know, that's like a very low claim. That's the reason, because it's really for that extra financial hit. We have not had any use of these funds for a while, and we tried to run last year's, we had no funds at all coming out of that reserve.
Chris, a lot of these might look a little bit low because 3 years ago when we ran into real tight budget constraints,
yep,
we analyzed each one of these and went through and realized how much do we really have to have in there. So we drained some of those to go into the regular budget to offset the taxes.
And that makes sense.
That's why they're a little different. Okay.
Yep. So again, we can look at these, but right now, looking at how we also could be running, these look at least a decent way to keep operating for that extra safety net.
And again, thank you, James, for that clarification, but I also want to again commend Mr. Rader on he has looked at how much we've actually utilized of that. And we've been consistent where we have not had to go into these reserves to compensate for any kind of workers' comp. So again, he was very confident that, because when I first saw it, I was exactly what you said. I'm like, $30,000 for workman's comp, it seems awfully low. And but he said that, you know, for the years we've not even come close to coming into those overage, and the fact that we are in a what did you call it? Cooperative.
Cooperative, yes.
Yep.
And again, keep in mind, we do budget this. This was a budgeted line item that we do use for the cooperative costs.
Right, that's how we got to the levels that we did before. We analyzed the previous years and what didn't we use and what do we need there, so. So we've gone through that, but no, I'm not taking, I appreciate Chris, but this is a lot more detailed than usually we see.
The next one we're talking about is our retirement ERS reserve. This is again for more of a support staff here at Fort Edward, and looking at our funding levels, looking at who is in that retirement system at this present time, our current rate, we need to have approximately $90,000. Of course, we know that that can change. We want to make sure the levels are correct. We have, again, did our research, and about 176,373.67 looks like it's an accurate number. We can kind of keep that level. Our next reserve is insurance. Again, we do pay insurance. This is again to kind of offset those extra costs. And we have not had any use of these funds for, again, a while. And then last year we did not have any monies needed, but this again can offset that insurance cost that we again do pay. But again, I make the recommendation that we don't make any adjustments to this insurance reserve, and keeping it at $27,489 is appropriate. This one is, we call it the EBLR, or Accrued Employee Benefits Liability Reserve. This is for anyone, staff, who has maxed out or even had sick time accrued, and we pay them out at a max of $27,000. We had one employee collect last year, 22-23, or this current school year, and we anticipate 2 employees. So that will be collecting, there's one that will be the max at 27, and then there's one that's a little bit lower. So I'm still projecting 2 full, just so we have kind of that estimated 54,000. But as you look at the bottom, we have right now $839,351 in that reserve. This is unemployment insurance reserve. This is again just to safeguard. We do again pay unemployment insurance. We do put this in our budget, but this happens. We wanted to make sure that if we ever did have to have some kind of layoff, again, COVID was a good example of that. We have some money set aside, and right now the levels look like they're appropriate. We did not use any funds in 22-23, so $56,015.70 is what's currently in our reserve for unemployment insurance. The next reserve is the retirement contributions for our TRS, which is our teachers. And according to the funding levels, again, we want to make sure that that is appropriate. And we have $148,092 into that reserve. This is one that I'm recommending we do add. This is the tax certiorari, which, by the way, we do have to pay tax repayments every year. It all fluctuates. We have an average of 1 star payment we have to pay every year just by assessments. If it was not assessed correctly, we do have to pay this back to those who were taxed. Same with a business. We had a couple years ago a tax repayment that was over $10,000. We just want to make sure we are protected and we're not getting extra hits financially. This is a way that you can have a reserve that protects those financial stabilities of your business. We do have this budgeted as well. So again, the first method of payment would be through the budget, but this is again to kind of offset anything extra that we don't anticipate out of budget.
And that's why we had gone down to 0, because there hadn't been much. Of course, the reassessment that happened could cause this account to be used, but it was stagnant for a long time.
Correct.
So we drained it thinking we could just handle from the general fund, or the balance that was there.
But we are seeing from a budgetary season, it could be something where if a bad assessment happens or a wrongly assessed property, we could get dinged. This is just a way to keep protected.
Now, especially with the reassessment.
Correct.